The November air bit at Rachel Fletcher's cheeks as she stood before the small crowd gathered at Marshall Park. 5 years had passed since her brother Kyle vanished without a trace, yet the ache of his absence remained as sharp as the day he disappeared. Behind her, enlarged photographs of Kyle's smiling face fluttered in the autumn breeze, the same photos that had once papered telephone poles and storefront windows across Charlotte. "I want to thank you all for coming today," Rachel's voice trembled slightly into the microphone. "5 years ago, my brother Kyle walked away from a comedy club downtown and simply disappeared. Someone knows something. Someone saw something. And I won't stop until we find the truth." Detective Marcus Reeves stood at the edge of the crowd, his weathered face impassive. The Fletcher case had been his obsession for half a decade, the case that refused to die, the case that followed him home at night. As the small gathering dispersed, he approached Rachel. "Miss Fletcher," he nodded. "Good turnout." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Not good enough. Not until someone comes forward with what happened to Kyle." "I wanted to let you know we're pursuing a new lead," Reeves said quietly. "Someone came forward last week. Claims they saw Kyle getting into a car that night, not the sedan from the gas station footage, but a rideshare." Hope flickered across Rachel's face, and Reeves hated himself for it. 5 years had taught him that hope could be more cruel than despair. "Why now?" Rachel asked. "Why would someone wait 5 years?" "Fear," Reeves replied simply. "But they're talking now." November 9, 2007, had been unusually warm for Charlotte. Kyle Fletcher had loosened his tie as he exited his office building, feeling optimistic. At 24, life was finally coming together. The marketing internship at Caldwell Media was transforming into a proper career. The offer letter sat in his messenger bag, still unopened. He wanted to savor the moment, perhaps over drinks with his colleagues. "Hey, superstar." Melissa from graphic design caught up with him in the lobby. "You coming to Ryan's show tonight? Half the office is going." Kyle grinned. Ryan Doyle, their IT guy, was trying his hand at stand-up comedy, and the department had rallied to support him. "Wouldn't miss it." "Are you heading there now?" Melissa nodded. "A few of us are grabbing dinner first at that new place on 4th Street. Want to join?" "I'll meet you at the club," Kyle replied. "Got some errands to run first." Those errands, picking up his suit from the dry cleaners and stopping by the bank, were the last confirmed activities before Kyle joined his co-workers at the Laugh Factory at 9:30 p.m. Security footage showed him entering the club, taking a seat with the Caldwell Media Group. He laughed, he applauded, he bought a round of drinks. Normal. Ordinary. Until it wasn't. Detective Reeves had reviewed the security footage from that night so many times he could recite the timeline by heart. Kyle exiting the club at 12:08 a.m. Kyle chatting with a tall man in a dark jacket outside, an interaction that lasted exactly 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Kyle checking his phone at 12:13 a.m., then walking northbound on Tryon Street. Alone. The next piece of footage came from a 24-hour gas station 6 blocks away, in the opposite direction from Kyle's apartment. At 12:42 a.m., a figure matching Kyle's description appeared at the edge of the frame, interacting briefly with someone in a dark sedan before getting in. The video quality was abysmal, the license plate unreadable. The final digital trace was a cell phone ping at 1:17 a.m., from a tower in Dilworth, miles from where Kyle should have been. Reeves flipped through the case file in his dimly lit office. The new witness claimed to be a former driver for a rideshare company that had since gone out of business. He said he'd picked up a young man matching Kyle's description that night, but the passenger had changed his destination mid-journey, directing the driver to an address in Dilworth. "I didn't think nothing of it at the time," the witness, James Creighton, had told Reeves. "People change their minds all the time, especially after a few drinks. But when I saw the missing person reports later, I don't know, something felt off about it." "And you waited 5 years to come forward?" Reeves had asked, skepticism evident. Creighton had shifted uncomfortably. I was working off the books. Picking up fares without reporting the income. Had some legal troubles I was trying to stay clear of. Reeves had pressed him on the details. The passenger had been alone when picked up, Creighton insisted. He'd seemed preoccupied but not distressed. The drop-off location had been a nondescript apartment complex. No, Creighton couldn't remember the exact unit number. Too many details missing. Too many years passed. But it was something, the first new lead in nearly 3 years. Rachel Fletcher had transformed her brother's disappearance into a mission. What began as desperate searches through Charlotte streets evolved into a foundation dedicated to missing adults, a category often overlooked in favor of missing children. The Fletcher Foundation provided resources to families, lobbied for legislative changes, and kept pressure on law enforcement. He was more than just a statistic, Rachel told the small audience at her latest fundraiser. The event was being held at Caldwell Media, where Kyle had worked. His former colleagues had remained supportive, particularly Ryan Doyle, who had abandoned his comedy aspirations and now handled IT for Rachel's foundation. Kyle was the kind of person who remembered your birthday when you'd forgotten it yourself, Ryan said when it was his turn to speak. The kind of guy who'd spot you lunch money without making you feel bad about it. When he disappeared, it left a hole in all of us. From the back of the room, Detective Reeves watched Ryan carefully. Something about the man had always struck him as performative, his grief too polished, his anecdotes too rehearsed. But then, Reeves had grown suspicious of everyone connected to the case. After the event, Reeves approached Ryan as he packed up his laptop. "Mr. Doyle. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" Ryan's smile was immediate but didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sure, Detective. Though I doubt I have anything new to add after all these years. You were one of the last people to see Kyle that night, at your comedy show. Along with half the office, yeah." Ryan gestured around the room. Melissa was there, Dave from accounting, about 10 others. "And afterward?" "We've been through this. I stayed to chat with the club owner about future gigs. Kyle and most of the others left around midnight. I didn't see which way he went." Reeves nodded slowly. "Did Kyle ever mention using rideshare services? Particular companies or drivers he preferred?" Something flickered across Ryan's face, so brief Reeves might have imagined it. "Not that I recall. He lived close enough to walk most places downtown." "Why?" "Just following up on some information." Reeves handed Ryan his card, though he knew the man already had his number. "If you remember anything at all, call me. Day or night." The Dilworth apartment complex was called Magnolia Gardens, a name that suggested a grandeur the aging building lacked. Reeves interviewed the property manager, a middle-aged woman named Deborah who'd held the position for over a decade. November 2007, she frowned, scrolling through digital records. "That's going back a ways. What unit did you say?" "I don't have a unit number," Reeves admitted. "Just looking for any residents who might have moved in or out around that time. Or maybe short-term renters, people who didn't stay long." Deborah's fingers tapped efficiently. "We had 4 move-ins that November. 3 move-outs. All seemed to have proper documentation." She turned the screen, showing Reeves the list. None of the names meant anything to him, but he copied them down anyway. One caught his attention, a month-to-month lease that had been terminated in mid-December 2007, just weeks after Kyle's disappearance. "This one," he pointed. "Carlisle. Can you tell me anything about them?" Deborah frowned. "Before my time handling the paperwork. But the name sounds familiar." She thought for a moment. "Older gentleman, I think. Quiet. Kept to himself. Don't recall any issues. Would you have a contact number? Forwarding address?" "Nothing current, I'm afraid. But I can check our archives for the original application." The application, when Deborah finally located it, was sparse. Thomas Carlyle, age 67, retired. Previous address listed as Tucson, Arizona. A phone number that, when Reeves later called it, connected to a medical supply company that had no record of any Thomas Carlyle. Another dead end, or something more. Rachel hadn't expected to find Kyle's old notebook. She'd been clearing out her parents' attic, a long-postponed task made necessary by their decision to downsize, when she found the box of Kyle's belongings. Inside was a moleskine journal she'd never seen before. Most entries were mundane, work notes, to-do lists, the occasional reflection on life and career goals. But the final entry, dated November 8, 2007, the day before he disappeared, was different. Meeting C, tomorrow after Ryan's show. Not sure what to expect, but if even half of what he's suggesting is true, this could change everything. Nervous but excited. Need to play it cool at the office, can't let anyone know yet, especially not R. Rachel's hands trembled as she dialed Detective Reeves' number. C could be this Carlyle person you found, she said after explaining her discovery. But who's R? Ryan? Could be, Reeves said thoughtfully. Or it could be you, Rachel. Me? Why would he hide something from me? Siblings don't tell each other everything, Miss Fletcher. But I agree, given the context, Ryan seems more likely. Especially since Kyle specifically mentions the comedy show. I always thought Ryan and Kyle were just colleagues, Rachel said. Friendly, but not close friends. That may be worth looking into again. Ryan Doyle's rise at Caldwell Media had been swift after Kyle's disappearance. From IT support to digital marketing manager in less than 2 years. His comedy career, abandoned after those first few open mic nights, seemed all but forgotten. Reeves sat across from him in a coffee shop near the Caldwell offices. Ryan had agreed to the meeting reluctantly, citing a busy schedule. I appreciate your time, Reeves began. I know it's been years, but sometimes old cases benefit from fresh perspectives. Ryan nodded, his fingers tapping nervously on his coffee cup. Happy to help, though I'm not sure what new perspective I can offer. I'm curious about your relationship with Kyle. Colleagues have described you as acquaintances rather than close friends. Yet you've remained very supportive of Rachel's foundation, very involved in keeping Kyle's memory alive. Is that suspicious? Ryan asked, his tone sharpening. Being a decent human being? Not at all. Just trying to understand the full picture. Reeves took a sip of his coffee. Did Kyle ever mention someone with the initial C to you? Perhaps in the context of a meeting or opportunity? Ryan frowned, seeming genuinely confused. C. Not that I recall. Though Kyle and I didn't exactly share personal details. Our interactions were mostly work-related, except for that final night. The comedy show. Right. Ryan's expression softened with what appeared to be nostalgia. Not my finest hour on stage, but everyone was supportive. Kyle especially. And afterward? Did you notice Kyle speaking with anyone outside the club? As I've said before, I stayed behind to talk to the club owner. When I left, Kyle was already gone. Reeves nodded, watching Ryan carefully. One last question, did you ever use a rideshare service called Quick Ride back then? Ryan blinked rapidly. Quick Ride? That startup that went belly up a few years ago? Maybe once or twice. They were cheaper than cabs, but the app was glitchy. Why? Just connecting dots, Reeves replied vaguely. Thanks for your time, Mr. Doyle. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A former Quick Ride developer, responding to Reeves' inquiries, had discovered archived ride data from November 2007. Most of it's corrupted, the developer explained over the phone. But I did find a ride logged at 12:22 a.m. on November 10, 2007, originating near the Laugh Factory. Destination was initially entered as an address in Uptown, then changed mid-ride to Magnolia Gardens in Dilworth. The passenger name? Reeves asked, heart racing. Account was registered to A.K. Fletcher. The developer paused. There's something else. The driver ID matches an account registered to a Ryan D. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Ryan Doyle, working side gigs as a quick-ride driver between his IT job and comedy aspirations. Kyle getting into his car that night, unaware that Ryan was his driver. The changed destination. The gas station footage that showed Kyle entering a dark sedan. But why? What had happened during that ride that led to Kyle's disappearance? Confronting Ryan proved less dramatic than Reeves had anticipated. When presented with the evidence, Ryan deflated, the carefully constructed facade crumbling. It was an accident, he whispered, hands shaking. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. According to Ryan's confession, he'd been shocked when Kyle requested his quick ride after the comedy show. Kyle hadn't recognized him in the dark car, and Ryan, embarrassed about his side job, hadn't identified himself. As they drove, Kyle had made a phone call, to someone Ryan referred to only as, the investor. Kyle was talking about leaving Caldwell, taking his marketing ideas elsewhere. He was meeting someone who wanted to back him in a new venture. He sounded excited, kept referring to the Carlyle proposal and how it would change everything. Thomas Carlyle? Reeves pressed. Ryan shrugged. He just said Carlyle. I realized he was talking about poaching clients from Caldwell, clients I'd helped secure through my IT work. He was going to use my network data to jumpstart his new business. The argument had escalated. Ryan claimed he'd only intended to confront Kyle, to warn him about the legal implications. He'd driven to Magnolia Gardens, where this mysterious Carlyle was supposedly waiting. But before they arrived, the confrontation turned physical. He laughed at me, Ryan said hollowly. Said I was a failed comedian and a glorified tech support who'd never amount to anything. Said Carlyle saw potential in him that I'd never have. A struggle, a shove, Kyle hitting his head against the car window with a sickening crack. Panic. Ryan driving to a construction site outside the city, burying Kyle's body in what would soon become the foundation of a new office building. I've lived with this every day for 5 years, Ryan concluded, tears streaming down his face. Helping Rachel, supporting the foundation, it was my penance. But I knew it would never be enough. The office building was being renovated when they found Kyle's remains, exactly where Ryan had indicated. The phone and wallet were still there, preserved in the undisturbed soil. A formal identification confirmed what they already knew. Rachel stood beside Detective Reeves as they watched the recovery team work. Who was Carlyle? She asked quietly. Was he even real? Very real, Reeves replied. Thomas Carlyle was a venture capitalist from Arizona with a history of backing marketing startups. He died of natural causes in 2009, never knowing what happened to Kyle that night. So Kyle really was on the verge of something big. Rachel's voice broke. A new life that he never got to live. The evidence suggests he was, Reeves confirmed. His notebook, Carlyle's lease at Magnolia Gardens, the business proposal we found on Kyle's laptop, it all points to a legitimate opportunity. All because Ryan couldn't stand to see Kyle succeed where he had failed, Rachel said bitterly. Jealousy, insecurity, a momentary rage that destroyed multiple lives, Reeves nodded. Including his own. As they walked away from the site, Rachel paused. There's still something that doesn't add up. In Kyle's journal, he wrote that he couldn't let R know about his meeting with Carlyle. I assumed that was Ryan, but if Ryan didn't know about Carlyle until Kyle mentioned it in the car. Maybe R wasn't Ryan, Reeves suggested. Maybe it was Rachel. Rachel stopped walking. Me? Why would he hide it from me? Perhaps he wanted to surprise you once everything was finalized. Or perhaps he worried you'd try to talk him out of leaving his stable job for a startup venture. Rachel considered this, her expression troubled. "We'll never know now, will we?" "Some questions don't get answered," Reeves agreed. "Even when the case is closed." But as they parted ways, Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. The timing of Carlisle's arrival in Charlotte, the convenient lease at Magnolia Gardens, the specific interest in Kyle despite his limited professional experience, all of it suggested a connection they were still missing. And there was the nagging detail of James Creighton, the witness who'd come forward after 5 years. His description of picking up Kyle matched the timeline, yet contradicted Ryan's confession. 2 rideshare drivers claiming the same passenger on the same night. One was clearly lying, but which one, and why? The case file was officially closed, the media calling it a tragic but solved mystery. Yet Detective Reeves kept a copy of the key documents in his home office, returning to them on sleepless nights. Something wasn't right. Something remained hidden. And somewhere in Charlotte, someone was still keeping secrets about what really happened to Kyle Fletcher on that November night in 2007.